The next one.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Claire Curran.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Labor does support this bill. It is, as colleagues have said before us, it is about the confidence and the robustness of the financial markets, but it's also important to put it into context, and it's important also to get it enacted, which is why a short speech is a good speech. I just want to make a couple of points, Mr. Speaker, that during the collapse of the numerous finance companies and the financial crisis, there was considerable uncertainty and fear about the finance sector and the wider economy, and the then Labor government passed a number of pieces of legislation that helped bring certainty. And it's important to keep on reiterating that, because that was the context to this bill, and it's a pity that it's taken so long for it to get to this House. Because in 2005 and 2006, that Labor government carried out a review of financial products and providers, and that review found it was necessary to reform the regulatory regime for non-bank deposit takers. And the Finance Minister then, Michael Cullen, oversaw the introduction of the Reserve Bank Act of New Zealand Amendment Act in 2008, and which did reintroduce the requirements in relation to credit ratings, governance, risk management, capital-related exposures and liquidity. But since this government has been in, investors in New Zealand have been left vulnerable because the National Party hasn't regarded it as an important issue. It is an important issue. International markets are in turmoil, and they need to have confidence in the companies they invest in, and confidence that the appropriate regulator has the power to protect them from negligent or plain dishonest individuals. If this bill had been introduced and passed as per the previous government's, Labor government's timeline, then Kiwi investors would have been protected. It would have encouraged investment in non-property assets and spurred on economic growth. And the previous Labor government had a long-term plan that would have protected investors and grown the economy, and Labor still has that plan through our considerable economic strategy and our capital gains tax policy. Carol Beaumont's bill, which I'm sure has been spoken about in the House tonight, which was attempted private members' bill that would have clamped down on loan sharks and protected vulnerable investors from outrageous interest rate charges, and our savings and monetary policies, which obviously are going to be announced, would have gone a long way to make a difference in this area, but that's been blocked, as we've seen in the House today. Mr. Speaker, Labor does support this bill. We're going to be listening closely to all the submissions. We want to hear from the finance sector directly so that any final reforms are actually practical and will positively affect the industry, and that's why we're supporting this bill to the Select Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker. I call the honourable member